Hello and welcome to our roundup of the European Parliament's latest plenary session here in Strasbourg. This week, the EPP Group spelled out its plan for tackling the crisis of hundreds of thousands of migrants trying, and too often dying, to reach Europe's shores. There was also action on boosting youth employment, faster emergency responses to road accidents, and new regulations on curbing the blight of plastic bags that blot our land and seascapes each year. We begin our coverage with the EPP plan to establish a more humane and effective EU migration policy. More than 250,000 undocumented migrants arrived in the EU in 2014, and unscrupulous human traffickers literally got away with murder in the mass drownings of more than 1,500 souls this year. Maltese EPP Group member Roberta Metsola was blunt in the assessment of frontline countries like hers facing a humanitarian disaster.
Closing our borders and allowing absolutely nobody to get in is not a solution, but at the same time we need to make it clear whoever is eligible for protection will be granted protection. Who is not eligible for protection, we need to find mechanisms for their safe return without in any way breaching the principle of non-refoulement.
Chairman Manfred Weber said the EPP Group supports the redistribution of asylum seekers among EU member states. The so-called Dublin regulations take into account the economic situation and number of persons already enjoying protection. Crucially, it would not loosen existing legal migration rules. Otherwise, Weber said, the impact on current EU youth employment from hundreds of thousands of African and Middle Eastern migrants legally able to seek work would be catastrophic.
In the south of Europe, in Italy, in Greece, in Spain, we have millions of young people, of young Europeans, who have for the moment no perspective for their, no economic perspective for their life, no job perspective. And having this in mind, I think it's a wrong answer to ask now Africans to come to European Union, to open labor markets inside of the European Union for young Africans to come to Europe. We will create on both sides of the Mediterranean Sea even more problems than solving any of the problems.
Weber said more comprehensive EU border control and rescue missions by Europol and Frontex should support worst affected frontline member states such as Greece, Malta, Italy, and Bulgaria. The EU also wants to fight human traffickers and their patrons and increase cooperation with Mediterranean neighbors like Libya, from where many refugees set sail, as well as the refugees' countries of origin. President Jean Claude Juncker told the plenary session that the Commission was ready to raise the budget up to 120 million euros to bring search, rescue and policing of the Mediterranean up to levels that will save countless lives.
The proposal I made on behalf of the Commission to triple the budget allocated to the Triton mission, despite some initial hesitation, was adopted by members of the Council. So we are re-establishing a funding advance that we lost along the way. It was a grave mistake to have put an end to the Mare Nostrum mission. It cost lives.
À la mission Mare Nostrum, elle a coûté des vies humaines.
What's the link between youth unemployment, road traffic deaths, and the number of plastic bags polluting Europe's streets and fields? The correct answer is the EPP Group, which fought hard this week in Parliament to drastically cut the misery in all three of these areas. A staggering 7 million young European people between the ages of 15 and 24 are currently unemployed. A legislative proposal by French EPP Group member Elisabeth Morin-Chartier would increase early financing to promote youth employment initiatives in the worst affected EU regions. 1 billion euros made available in 2015 marks a sizable advance in the fight to put Europe's youth back to work.
Ce préfinancement passe de 1%.
This pre-financing increases from 1% to 30%, which means that yes, Europe knows what is needed in the field. Because project leaders can't raise the funds they desperately need, especially in the most troubled regions. This provides a much-needed helping hand.
This project could significantly cut down youth unemployment rates, reaching nearly 50% in some areas. To understand how this project works, you can watch an extensive interview with Morin-Chartier in the program People First on the EPP TV website. The EPP Group also backs new high-tech measures to get emergency services faster to those injured on EU roads. The death toll last year was over 25,000. E-call-in vehicle services, going into effect in 2018, would send a radio signal to emergency services at the very moment airbags inflate in a crash. Using hardware to be installed in new cars after 2018 and complying with data protection laws, the service will identify the time of accident and location, as well as type of vehicle. This would help save many lives each year, says Portuguese EPP Group member Carlos Coelho.
It's working in all Europe. It doesn't matter if you are driving a car in your own country or in any other European country. Emergency help will be sent as soon as your car asks for that. And when there are so many people pretending we don't need more Europe, we have a clear example where more Europe is needed.
As hugely irresponsible as it sounds, an estimated 100 billion tons of ultra-thin plastic carrier bags are thrown away each year in the EU, ending up as waste in EU waters and soil. Needing hundreds of years to degrade, these bags pose a greater environmental risk than thicker supermarket-type versions because the thinner ones are rarely recycled. György Hölvényi, Hungarian member for the EPP Group, called the regulation a good chance for consumers to change their plastic habits.
If you have any access to the alternative bag, like a cotton bag or something like that, please use it. It's much more better for you and much more better for the environment. Of course, all the countries have the responsibility to keep the industry, but you know the industry have to change like the citizens as well.
Finally, during an impromptu visit to Parliament, Greek opposition leader and former Prime Minister Antonis Samaras gave a cautiously hopeful assessment despite the current leftist government attempts to roll back his structural reform efforts. Samaras' message to EPP Group members: governments come and go, but Greece itself needs to be allowed time to remain in the euro and in the EU family of nations. That's all for now from the Strasbourg session. See you again next week from Brussels. And find out more about the largest political force in Parliament by going to eppgroup.eu. Thanks for looking in, and see you again soon.